Title: I found my own face in a video recorded 20 years ago. Help this channel grow. Like the video, leave a comment and subscribe for more stories. This helps us a lot. Thank you. The story begins 20 years ago. A camera captured something that was never meant to be seen again. When Daniel found the tape, he thought it was just another forgotten memory waiting to be restored. What he saw instead was himself, as a child, standing somewhere he had never been. If you're ready for the truth behind this recording, subscribe now. Some faces are not reflections. They are replacements. Daniel Mercer had built his life around evidence. He trusted documentation more than memory, pixels more than perception. As a digital restoration specialist, he repaired aging footage for archives, historians, and occasionally law enforcement. He worked in a converted warehouse studio at the edge of the city, where the ceilings were high, the windows narrow, and the world outside felt comfortably distant. The past, in his experience, was predictable. It decayed, but it did not change. The box arrived on a Monday morning. It sat just inside the stairwell leading to his studio, resting against the wall as though it had been placed carefully rather than discarded. The cardboard was old but intact. Its edges were reinforced with layered tape that had yellowed with age. Written across the top in thick black marker were 4 words. Found in storage unit 14. There was no shipping label. No postage marks. No name. Daniel stood still for nearly a minute before touching it. He did not remember ever renting a storage unit. He carried the box upstairs. Inside, beneath brittle newspaper dated 2008, lay a single VHS cassette. The plastic casing was scratched, but the label remained legible. Summer 2006. Daniel felt something subtle shift inside his chest. He had been 8 years old in 2006. He placed the tape on his desk beside the conversion deck and stared at it longer than necessary. A faint unease crawled along his spine, though he could not explain why. It was not unusual for anonymous footage to appear. Estate cleanouts, abandoned storage units, forgotten family recordings, these things often surfaced years later. Still, this felt deliberate. He inserted the cassette into the player. The machine accepted it with a mechanical click. Static rolled across the monitor before stabilizing into grainy sunlight. A backyard appeared. The footage bore the unmistakable texture of early consumer camcorders. Slightly washed colors, soft edges, inconsistent exposure. Children ran across trimmed grass. A folding table held paper plates and a half-melted cake. Balloons bobbed weakly against a wooden fence. A birthday party. Daniel leaned back, arms folded loosely. He did not recognize the house. The yard was too narrow. The fence too tall. The trees unfamiliar. The camera panned lazily across the party, lingering on children chasing each other through sprinkler mist. Then it stopped moving. The frame tightened toward the far edge of the yard. A boy stood near the fence. He was alone. He was not playing. He was not speaking. He was simply standing still, half concealed in shadow cast by the fence slats. Daniel's heartbeat slowed. The camera zoomed slightly. The boy looked to be around 8 years old. Dark hair. Thin frame. Pale skin. And the face. Daniel's breath caught in his throat. It was his face. Not similar. Not close. Identical. The same narrow jaw. The same slight asymmetry around the eyes. Even the faint crescent scar above the right eyebrow. A scar Daniel had received at age 10 after slipping against a glass coffee table. The scar was present. Daniel paused the footage. His reflection hovered faintly in the glass of the monitor, superimposed over the frozen image of the boy. The resemblance was absolute. He stepped closer. There was no sign of editing. No digital tampering. The tracking lines, the chromatic bleed, the natural motion blur, everything suggested authenticity. He resumed playback. The camera lingered on the boy longer than felt comfortable. None of the other children approached him. None appeared aware of his presence. The boy did not blink. After several seconds, his gaze shifted. Not toward the party. Toward the camera. He stared directly into the lens. Then slowly, deliberately, he raised his hand and pointed straight at it. The image distorted with sudden static. The screen cut to black. Daniel did not realize he had stopped breathing until his lungs began to ache. He rewound the tape. The same sequence unfolded. The boy's expression did not change. His pointing gesture was steady. And just before the distortion overtook the frame, his lips moved. There was no audio beyond the soft hiss of aging tape. But the movement was clear. One word. Oh. Daniel muted the playback entirely. The warehouse felt colder. He replayed the segment again, this time capturing a still frame of the boy's face. He imported it into his restoration software and began enhancing the image. As clarity increased, so did the dread. The scar was unmistakable. But something else became visible behind the boy. Beyond the fence, partially concealed in shadow, stood a figure. Tall. Too tall. Its limbs were elongated, thin as branches. Its form blended with the vertical slats, nearly indistinguishable at first glance. But once seen, it could not be unseen. One long arm rested lightly on the boy's shoulder. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. He did not remember that backyard. He did not remember that day. But as he stared at the enhanced image, a memory began to stir. Not a clear image, but a sensation. Standing somewhere unfamiliar. Feeling watched. Feeling chosen. He closed the program abruptly. The monitor went dark, reflecting only his pale face. He turned in his chair and scanned the studio. The exposed beams, the silent equipment racks, the tall windows. Everything appeared normal. Yet something felt altered. As though the act of watching had triggered recognition. He pressed play again. The screen remained black for several seconds. Then a new scene appeared. A hallway. Dimly lit. Wallpaper peeling in thin curls. A single door at the far end. The camera moved slowly forward. Daniel's pulse began to pound. The hallway felt wrong in a familiar way. The proportions were similar to his childhood home, but subtly distorted. Narrower. Taller ceiling. Shadows too deep. The camera passed a framed photograph hanging crooked on the wall. Daniel leaned forward. It was a family portrait. His family portrait. Taken in 2006. Him at 8 years old. His mother standing behind him. His father beside her. But the hallway was not their house. It was an imitation. The camera approached the door. Tall. Unnaturally thin. Daniel spun around. Nothing was there. But somewhere deep in his mind, a door had begun to open. And behind it, something waited patiently. Because the tape had not been sent by accident. It had been sent as a reminder. And somewhere, in a storage unit he did not remember renting, something else had been waiting for 20 years. Daniel did not sleep that night. He left the warehouse well past midnight, but the tape did not leave his mind. The image of the boy, his face, his scar, his stillness, replayed every time he closed his eyes. More disturbing than the resemblance was the certainty growing inside him that the footage was not a trick. It carried the weight of authenticity. It felt recorded, not constructed. By morning, exhaustion had hollowed his thoughts into something sharp and reckless. He began searching storage facilities within a 50-mile radius. The phrase on the box repeated in his head, Storage Unit 14. There were too many possibilities. Too many buildings with numbered doors and concrete corridors. Then he found something strange. A small, outdated storage complex 15 miles outside the city limits. Its website was barely functional. Grainy photographs showed rusted roll-up doors and gravel lots. Beneath the list of available units, one entry appeared different. Unit 14, permanently leased. No tenant name listed. Daniel felt a cold steadiness settle over him. He drove there without calling. The facility sat beside a highway bordered by dead grass and skeletal trees. The office building looked abandoned, but a handwritten sign in the window indicated business hours. The gravel crunched beneath his tires as he parked. Inside, the office smelled of dust and stale air. An elderly man sat behind a desk cluttered with paperwork. He looked up slowly, eyes dull with routine. Daniel asked about Unit 14. The man hesitated. He said the unit had been leased continuously for over 20 years. Paid in advance in large increments. No issues. No visits recorded recently. Daniel asked who leased it. The man checked the computer. The tenant name listed was Daniel Mercer. The date of lease initiation, July 2006. Daniel felt the room tilt. He told the man there must be a mistake. The man turned the monitor toward him. The digital contract bore his name, birth date, and a scanned signature. The signature was his. Not similar. Exact. His chest tightened. He had never been to this facility before. The man explained that if he had identification, he could access the unit. Daniel handed over his driver's license. The elderly man studied it, compared it to the file, and nodded. The gate buzzed open. Daniel walked down the gravel lane between rows of metal doors. Each unit was identical, sun-faded and streaked with rust. He found number 14. The padlock was old but intact. His hands trembled as he inserted the key the manager had provided. The lock opened without resistance. He pulled the metal door upward. The sound echoed too loudly in the empty corridor. Inside, the unit was dark. He stepped in cautiously. The space was small. Concrete floor. Metal walls. No furniture. Only a single object sat in the center. A VHS tape. It lay on the floor as though placed there deliberately. No dust covered it. Daniel knelt slowly. The label read, Summer 2026. His throat tightened. The tape from the hallway scene. The one inside the recording from 20 years ago. It was real. It existed physically in front of him. His mind raced through explanations. Someone had planted it. This was an elaborate psychological prank. But who would orchestrate something spanning decades? Who would lease a unit under his name when he was 8 years old? He picked up the tape. It felt warm. He froze. The air inside the unit felt heavier than outside, as if oxygen thinned within the metal walls. He became aware of something else. A faint sensation of being observed. Not from the open doorway behind him. From within the unit itself. He turned slowly. The walls were bare. But for a moment, just a moment, he thought he saw an outline against the far corner. A distortion where light bent unnaturally. Tall. Elongated. Gone as soon as he focused. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He backed out of the unit quickly, lowering the door with shaking hands. He returned the key to the office without speaking. The elderly man did not ask questions. The drive back to the warehouse felt unreal. The world outside the windshield seemed thinner, like a projected backdrop. He reached the studio and locked the door behind him. The tape sat on his desk. Summer 2026. He stared at it for a long time before inserting it into the player. The machine hummed. Static flickered. Then the image stabilized. The same hallway from the first tape appeared. Wallpaper peeling. Door at the end. But this time the camera perspective felt closer to the floor. Lower. Unsteady. As if held by a child. Daniel's breathing grew shallow. The camera moved forward slowly. The family portrait was still crooked on the wall. But something was different. The photograph had changed. In the frame, his mother and father stood as before. But the child between them was not the boy from the previous tape. It was someone else. A child with Daniel's face, but older. The scar above the eyebrow was deeper. The eyes darker. Hollow. The camera continued toward the door. It pushed it open. Inside the room was a mirror. Large. Standing upright against the far wall. The camera moved toward it. Daniel's reflection did not appear on the screen. Instead, the mirror showed the storage unit. Unit 14. Empty except for one thing. A small child standing in the center. The child looked 8 years old. He stared upward at the mirror, at the camera, at Daniel. The child slowly raised his hand and pressed it against the inside of the glass. Daniel felt something shift in the room around him. The air grew colder. The warehouse lights flickered faintly. On the screen, the child's reflection began to change. His face elongated slightly. His limbs stretched. The skin seemed to thin, pulling taut over sharp angles. The transformation was subtle but undeniable. The thing behind the boy, the tall figure from the first tape, stepped forward within the reflection. It placed one long hand over the boy's head, and gently pushed. The child's face pressed against the inside of the mirror, flattening unnaturally. Cracks spread across the glass. The image distorted violently. Then the perspective shifted. The camera was no longer facing the mirror. It was inside the storage unit, looking outward, toward the open door, toward Daniel, his studio, his desk, his chair. The angle matched perfectly. The footage was showing his present moment, recorded from somewhere behind him. Daniel's body locked in place. He did not want to turn around. On the monitor, he saw himself sitting at the desk. The image quality was clearer than the previous tapes. More immediate. The tall figure stood directly behind him. Daniel felt a cold pressure against the back of his neck. The figure's elongated hand hovered inches from his head. On the screen, the hand lowered slowly. It rested against the crown of his skull. Daniel's vision blurred. He tried to stand, but his muscles felt distant, detached. On the monitor, the figure leaned closer to him. Its face remained indistinct, a void where features should be. The screen flickered. The perspective changed again. Now the camera faced Daniel directly. He was standing in the storage unit. He looked 8 years old. He stared at the lens. Behind him stood the tall figure. Daniel realized something horrifying. The boy from the 2006 tape was not a coincidence. He had been recorded after being taken. The storage unit was not a place of storage. It was a threshold, a space between reflections, between versions. He remembered now. Not clearly, but enough. A birthday party. Feeling lost. Walking toward the fence. Seeing something beyond it that no one else seemed to notice. Being told without words that he was chosen. That he could step into a place where time did not move the same way. The scar above his eyebrow. He had not gotten it from a coffee table. He had gotten it there. Against glass. Pressing his head against something hard and invisible. Trying to get back. The tape continued. On screen, the 8-year-old Daniel raised his hand and pointed at the lens. Just like before. Only this time the lens was his current self. The child's mouth moved. Daniel did not need audio to understand. Oh. The warehouse lights went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Only the glow of the monitor remained. In that dim light, Daniel finally turned his head. The tall figure stood behind him. Not a shadow. Not a reflection. Present. Its height nearly reached the ceiling beams. Its limbs bent at impossible angles. Its face was a smooth absence. The same presence from the fence. From the hallway. From the mirror. It placed one long hand gently against his shoulder. The touch was cold but not painful. Almost patient. Daniel's body felt lighter. Detached. On the monitor, the image shifted one final time. The storage unit door rolled down slowly. Inside stood the 8-year-old boy. He watched as the metal door sealed shut. Darkness enclosed him. The screen cut to static. The warehouse lights flickered back on. Daniel's chair was empty. The tape ejected itself. It fell to the desk with a soft plastic clatter. The studio door remained locked from the inside. No sign of struggle. No sign of departure. Only the faint imprint of a small hand visible for a brief moment on the dark surface of the monitor before fading completely. Back at the storage facility, Unit 14 remained permanently leased. Paid in advance. The tenant name unchanged. Daniel Mercer. Lease renewed for another 20 years. Inside the unit, a small child sat quietly on the concrete floor. He did not cry. He did not move. He stared at the metal door, waiting for the next recording to begin. And outside, somewhere beyond the threshold of mirrors and tape and memory, something tall and patient watched over him. Because reflections are not passive. They wait. And when they find a match, they replace it. Some recordings don't capture the past. They prepare the future. If this story unsettled you, make sure you subscribe, because the next face in the footage might not belong to a stranger. And if you ever see yourself somewhere you have never been, do not look too long. Some reflections are searching for a way out.